Welcome back to the Commanders Declassified Podcast, your home for all things Washington Commanders. Everybody, we appreciate the support. We appreciate the love. It means the world to us. If you're going to watch the video, hit that subscribe button, find it on your screen, and hit that button. All right. Happy 4th of July week to everybody. And we got a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about what's going on with the opposing teams in the division. There's a lot of information out there that's really going to play a big part in the outcome of our season. We are going to get into that tonight. First, let's say what's up to the peeps. Eric, what's happening?
I am hanging out. You guys killed it last week. Good job on the podcast. I didn't quite make it out of finishing school or wherever I was, but there's always next year.
That's right, man. Congratulations on cosmetology graduation.
Cosmetology, yeah. See, I thought it was like going to space in Russia, but apparently it's makeup.
Eric will be starring in Barbershop 3 here soon, very soon.
Oh man, yeah, me and Busta Rhymes.
Brian, what's going on, buddy?
Same old stuff, man. I had a good 4th of July, and I'm ready to talk some NFC East opponents.
We are going to do that indeed. So before we get into that, I was watching this YouTube video about some of the best jukes of all time, and it made me think, who's the shiftiest Redskins Washington football team / Commander player that you remember? Eric, I'll start with you.
The shiftiest?
Yeah, jukey, that kind of guy, breaking ankles.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go Santana Moss probably that'd be my pick. Maybe like Ricky Irvin's going a little further back, but I think Santana's probably the guy that I'd pick first and foremost.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I can't go that far back. Like, I think Santana's probably number one. He was just so sudden of a guy. But I'll go even, lesser. But if you just think about this guy and just his singular thing that he was asked to do, kick return and Brandon Banks for like a one season period, he had some great start, stop, change of direction, returning kicks. And I mean, shifty. Does that mean he was great at anything else? No, but he was pretty shifty.
That's a really good call as well. I'm gonna throw another name out there for you, Jamison Crowder. You remember him in the slot when he got the ball in his hands? He was always pretty effective after the catch. Injuries, whatever, sort of like took that all away. But I think it's a position or a skill set that we really have lacked. I mean, you could say that about basically all skill sets for this team over the last 30 years. But I was like, man, there's just so many guys that are just good at this. I think Jahan Dotson is that guy now, right?
Curtis Samuel. I think you can use the way they'll use. I hope that they use Curtis Samuel. I think you'll see a lot more of that from him as well, because he's got some really good open field moves this time around. Or even last season you could see it, because Scott Turner's like basically just get him the ball and make him break 7 tackles was the game plan. So actually getting him the ball in space where he can run, I think you'll see it a lot more this year.
Yeah, no, I like that too.
Yeah, no, I agree with the Jahan Dotson. I mean, if we can get some more moves like that spin move against the Giant, I mean, I'm all for that. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see him in space, breaking people's ankles, putting moves on highlights. That's what I want from him.
What about J.D. McKissick? Does he deserve some love there?
He was good in the open field. I don't see anybody from just like an open field shiftiness, tackle breaking. I don't see anybody better than Santana for as long as I can remember, and that's even going back to the Posse days and Mike Nelms and those guys. Like, Santana is it for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, let's jump into this NFC East conversation. Brian, do we all sort of align on how we think the NFC will shake out? Take out the Commanders from that, but for the rest of the 3 teams, how do you sort of see them in terms of finishing order in the division?
Yeah, I think you start with the defending champs of the NFC East, the Eagles, right? They had a pretty easy run right through the division and through the season last year. I don't know, maybe they lost 3 games or something like that all year. They didn't lose, a lot of games, and so you got to start with those guys. They do have some losses, and I know Eric will go over those and some deficiencies, but they I think are head and shoulders. Maybe not head and shoulders, but there's a definite gap between them and everybody else. And then you probably go with the Cowboys, who are right after them. They really still haven't kind of separated themselves as a top tier team. They win some games during the regular season, and they flame out in the postseason if they make it. So I think they're a solid number 2, and then the Giants. I think maybe they did a little bit more than was expected last year under first year head coach Brian Daboll. So it'll be interesting to see how they follow up a playoff year, and if they can kind of put some more consistency together, because they've been pretty bad for the last 5 years overall as a franchise. So we'll see how they go. But I think that's probably the order, right? If you take us out of it, that's probably the order you're looking at.
Eric, any disagreement from you?
Not really. I don't see 3 playoff teams coming out of this division again. I think somebody is going to regress. My money actually is on Dallas to regress more than the Giants will. I think the Giants will probably be in that 10-7 range again. I can see Dallas taking a step backwards. I can see Philly not be. I mean, Philly, it looks really good on paper, but I can see Philly taking a step back. I just can. They had a really good run last year. It's really difficult to duplicate that. So, I mean, they could take a step back and still win the division easily, right? So I can see a regression overall in the division. I don't see 3 playoff teams. That just doesn't happen. I don't see all 4 teams over 500, any of that. So, but as far as the order, yeah, I can see the Giants leapfrogging the Cowboys. But I think Philly right now would still be the front runner.
Yeah, I think I agree with the original or Brian's order. I think if any team's going to take a step back, uh, I think it's the Giants, because just mathematically speaking, they had a lot of things break their way, and they play such a low margin of error type of football that 2 bounces could completely change their season, and that is really hard to duplicate and have the same outcomes year after year. So I think they could regress a little bit. Is it enough to go to 4th in the division? I don't know. That's not what this episode is necessarily about. But let's start with the division champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Eric, tell us about them, their offseason, and sort of where they're headed.
The Eagles are that team that just, it's annoying. Everybody gushes over them, all the analysts. Like, you can't find anybody to say anything bad about them. So I'll be that guy, because I know that hate watching brings in clicks. So feel free, Philly fans, come at me. I'm completely okay with that. But look, they look great on paper. Not going to lie. They retained a lot of the guys that they had last year. They were able to bring back like Kelsey and I don't even know. The offensive the other offensive tackle, can't think of his name. They brought back they lost Javon Hargrave. Basically, the players that they lost, they have in-house replacements for. Like Javon Hargrave is gone, but you've still got Brandon Graham on the other side. You've got Jordan Davis is going to step in to replace, Jordan Davis, I guess, is going to replace Javon Hargrave. Nakobe Dean is going to step up. Those guys didn't get a lot of playing time last year. So, the guys that they lost in free agency, just kind of a quick overview: Miles Sanders, TJ Edwards, Isaac Seumalo, guard, Kaiser White, Andre Dillard, Gardner Minshew, Zach Pascal. Those are guys that they had, all basically have been replaced, right? Like, you've got Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift coming in to replace, Miles Sanders. Boston Scott, I think, re-signed as well, or maybe they lost him, but honestly, they just re-signed 2 legit running backs, right? They brought in Mariota to replace Marcus Mariota to replace Gardner Minshew. The swagger probably takes a step back, but honestly, the effectiveness is probably there. They brought in Greedy Williams at cornerback, Terrell Edmonds at safety. because CJ Gardner-Johnson signed elsewhere. So they've got replacements for basically everybody that they lost. I think the two biggest losses for the Eagles are at the coordinator positions. They lost both coordinators to head coaching jobs. Good for those guys. But Shane Steichen went, is it Steichen or I'll never get it right. But anyway, he went to the Colts, Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals. And I think the offensive coordinator is a bigger loss because if you guys remember, the 2021 Eagles were pretty much a disaster until Nick Sirianni turned over play calling to Stitchen. And Nick Sirianni appears to be the guy that's resuming his play calling duties this year. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think it's going to be that big of a disaster because they have so much talent on offense now. They're much more talented than they were that year with the wide receiver duo that they've got, with the upgrades at running backs. They've still got one of the best offensive lines in football. And of course, Jalen Hurts is there. And Jalen Hurts is, he's easily top 10, close, borderline top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think I'd quite put him in the top 5 yet, but he's real close. So, I mean, they're going to look good on offense. They've got too much talent to just be a terrible offensive team, but I can see them regressing because, Sirianni is a pass-happy coordinator. He was when he was a coordinator. He was when he started out with the Eagles. They can throw. The offense is predicated around the threat of Jalen Hurts running, and Shane Steichen did a great job of maximizing that. Let's see what Sirianni can do. But overall, the Eagles are still a very solid team. Unless there's a rash of injuries, because they've got a ton of depth too, unless there's just a horrible injury plagued season, I think they're easily a playoff team, probably a division champ team again.
Yeah,
I think
it's hard to. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was going to say, I think Eric nailed it. That offensive line is the key. I mean, last year they were dominant offensive line, which allowed Jalen Hurts to develop as a young quarterback. We've like probably the last 10 years, I've always talked about the Dallas Cowboys having that great offensive line. Last year, it was the Eagles. They were excellent, and there wasn't another offensive line better than they were at opening holes in the running game and then in the pass game. I mean, they were just awesome. So losing that guard Isaac Seumalo, that's going to be tough. And then their center, Kelsey, he's 35, and then Lane Johnson is 33. Those guys are older. So it'll be interesting to see if they make it another 17-game seasons, right? It's a long year for that offensive line, and they do a lot of running, a lot of hitting in that offense. So, but that'll be the key. If that offensive line stays healthy, I think, sky's the limit for how far they can go. If that offensive line gets hurt, I think it all falls apart pretty quickly.
And I forgot to mention, they drafted the Georgia Bulldogs. So pretty much the entire 2021 team is now Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo. Again, is that a great draft class, or is that just like, well, that team was good, let me get all those guys? But we'll see. I'm not a big Keely Ringo guy, but I think Jalen Carter is legit. Nolan Smith's probably going to be pretty good as well. But we'll see. We'll see how that draft class turns out. But I think you'll see a lot. It'll look a lot like it did last year, where those guys will most likely be depth pieces this year, playing behind guys that are going to leave next year. And you'll have a Jalen Carter and what's his name? I already forget, Jordan Davis defensive line next year with Nakobe Dean, behind him. So it'll be the 2020 Georgia Bulldogs probably next season, starting for the Eagles.
Yeah, it's almost unfair that they lose talent and then they get, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round of a draft. It's just unreal what that GM was able to do there. Let me ask you guys, what about the Eagles poses the biggest risk to the Commanders season? Eric, I'll start with you.
I mean, I don't think they're not in the same class yet. Honestly, I don't think that there's any risk to the Commanders season other than 2 losses keeping them out of the playoffs. That's the risk. Because the Commanders, your best hope this year is a borderline playoff team. I just don't think this team's going to be much better than that unless Eric Bieniemy is like a wizard, right? And I just don't see it them progressing that much. I can see them being in that, they're peaking out at a 10-win season. Which I'm going to hate because I've said before, I want to win 12 or lose 12. I don't want anything between. I see them maxing out at 10 wins, and I think the Eagles are probably a 12 to 13 win team again. So I do see. I mean, the Commanders had the correct game plan, and they had a perfect game plan for the Eagles last year. They really did what they could to limit Jalen Hurts on the offense. They took advantage of turnovers. They took advantage of uncharacteristic mistakes that the Eagles made in that game. They got away with a blatant face mask, but whatever. They did take that game away from the Eagles. They are a team that matches up okay with the Eagles. often, strength against weakness and weakness against strength. It's there's a threat of the Commanders potentially stealing another one next year against the Eagles. I just don't think there's much that the Eagles are going to do that is really going to screw up the Commanders season, except beat them twice.
Yep, I can dig it. Brian, you agree?
Yeah, I mean the Eagles really kind of have no bearing necessarily on kind of our outlook outside of the fact, hey, can Washington split, or can they what can they do to kind of avoid being swept? But I mean, really, they're better than us, and there's a gap between us right now. We haven't closed the gap yet, and until we get some better areas, some better coaching, and a couple of players, I still think we're a little bit of a ways off from being like, okay, it's us and the Eagles, or it's us and the Cowboys. So we've got to get better. We've got to show better. We might have the potential to do it, but we haven't shown any of it yet. So yeah, I don't think there's much in the way that they can kind of influence us.
What I would say is I think the Eagles can probably end our season if we're not careful, right? So we really got to win the games that matter, but we play them twice in 5 weeks in October. So I don't love that because they are such a good team and they'll be hitting their stride. So we really need to be aggressive and come out and attack them if we're going to have a season. If we lose both of them that early in the season, then our record's probably not going to be all that great. But like we beat them last year. There's always a fighting chance, right? So like any given Sunday, like that movie. So
Well, the
never
Ron
know.
Rivera Commanders don't even show up until November. Like, we don't hit our stride. We're 2-5 by the time November 1st rolls around. So I don't think it's going to matter that much.
I will say what I did think though from last season, though, from that game that we played them. What was the second game? October or something like that. When we did beat them, like right after we beat them, week 9, something like that. Right after we beat them, the Eagles immediately went out and signed like 3 defensive tackles. I think they signed Ndamukong Suh, another old defensive tackle from the Vikings. Like they went out and they recognized an issue right away, and they went out and addressed it. We don't do that, right? We wait weeks and months and 8 losses in a row before we address issues here in Washington with Rivera, because he's so patient, almost to a fault. So we'll see what kind of adjustments they make this year when they recognize things aren't going well in certain areas.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brian. All right, take us to Dallas, Brian. What's the forecast on the Cowboys here?
So, with Dallas, one of the big things is that the defense kind of remains intact. Everything is kind of, lining up for them to have another good defense. Dan Quinn flirted with becoming a head coach. He interviewed a couple of times, but ultimately decided to stay as the defensive coordinator in Dallas. And their defenses have been pretty good the last several years. One of the big noticeable changes is, just about a month ago, we got word that Micah Parsons was going to add a little bit of weight and then play defensive end. Micah Parsons is a awesome pass rusher, relentless. As a pass rushing linebacker, they would move him all over. Now he's going to be a defensive end. He's going to have to be a little bit more stout against the run. We'll see how that works out for them, but their defense overall is going to be pretty good. They added Stephon Gilmore, an aging corner, but somebody Terry has played against and done really well against as well too. Some of the other guys that they re-signed or free agency, right? They franchise tagged Pollard. He's going to be the feature back there in Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott's no longer with the team. There have been reports that he may come back on a 1-year deal later on, but that hasn't happened as of yet. They re-signed Cooper Rush, the backup. He actually played a bunch of games. Dak got hurt, has been hurt, the last couple of years. So, it's important that they've got that backup. Leighton Vander Esch signed back, another linebacker on that defense. Dante Fowler Jr., another good edge rusher, pass rusher for that defense. So they've got some guys. They also Jonathan Hankins, another defensive tackle. Washington fans remember we thought we were going to sign him like every year for like 5 years in a row with that guy. Also, wide receiver Brandon Cooks. I don't know what he's got left in the tank. Didn't do too much in Houston. There wasn't a whole lot of talent there in Houston with the offensive line, the quarterback position there. So we'll see if he can help Dak. another big thing is the offensive coordinator in Dallas is gone. Kellen Moore went to the Chargers. They elevated, I think, Brian Schottenheimer, who was a special offensive assistant, to offensive coordinator, but Mike McCarthy is going to be calling plays. So Mike McCarthy traditionally has been more pass happy, which is literally what the Dallas Cowboys have been doing. They haven't really been that run focused of a team. So I don't know how much that will help them. That honestly, that may hinder them a little bit. But overall, Dallas is a good team, but they're not a championship team. We've seen it, right? They are front runners. They win a lot of games during the regular season, and they fall short in the playoffs in a big way when it comes to the playoffs or at the end of the year. So they'll still be a really good team that we'll have to contend with, but they are by no means, like the Eagles, where it's a big gap or anything like that between us and them.
Yeah, I think what makes me the most nervous about the Cowboys is just the pass rush. Now, I don't know why NFL teams continuously tinker with guys who are special at what they do, like Micah Parsons. Just like let Micah be Micah, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to conform him to what your particular positional ideology is. Let him do what he does best, and that's just come after the quarterback, standing up, moving around, all those great things. I don't get it.
No, you're exactly right. This could be a big disaster for them because you're asking a guy who's been one weight his whole career to gain more weight and now have to line up against offensive tackles or defense or guards, things like that. It's like, why? Why do that? So you're exactly right. This could be a big disaster for them if they bulk him up and have him as a full-time defensive end.
I think he's too good of a player that it'll be a disaster, but I think losing him as a chess piece like that just doesn't make a lot of sense unless he's just there. He has shown that he can be the best defensive end in the league. He's like Von Miller 2.0. Okay. But I mean, from what they were able to do with him for the first 2 years, I don't know why you would want to get away from that, especially to move him to a position that has a lot more wear and tear on it. Whereas if you can move him around, you can, but yeah, what do I know? I'm not a head coach. One guy they brought in that I'm a little salty about because it was somebody that I thought Ron Rivera would actually like and would really work out here. And I think he's going to be a really legit player. And I think he's going to be fantastic for the Cowboys is linebacker DeMarvion Overshown out of Texas. He's a crazy athlete. And he's just exactly with the kind of player that, maybe he can be that chess piece that they're removing Micah Parsons. Like he's not Micah Parsons level. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's definitely a guy that can potentially replace like a Leighton Vander Esch who can't stay on the field. Overshown, I think he's a beast, and I'm really a little salty that we didn't draft him. It bugs me, but hey, it is what it is. He's a Cowboy, so good luck to him. I hate his guts, but I wish it was him.
I think if Overshown had changed his position before the draft to safety, we would have got him. But because it was said linebacker, Rivera just ignored him.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If he had just changed it to one of those two, we would have taken him with like the second overall pick or something.
Yeah, and it may have been that Parsons wanted to switch positions because linebackers don't get paid. Maybe he recognized that early and said, "Look, I want to be a defensive end. I want to make quarterback money, so put me here." So that could also be
that's a good point.
Part of the reason. Look, Dak Prescott gets a lot of hate. He's a good quarterback. Is he a championship caliber quarterback? He has not proven to be that yet, but he is a really good quarterback. I think he's in that Kirk Cousins tier. They lost that tight end they had, right? But they got another guy. What's our guy's name? I think you mentioned it, Brian.
Schoonmaker.
Yeah.
Well, they lost Dalton Schultz. They signed.
Yes.
They drafted Schoonmaker. That is a downgrade.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz went to the Texans on a 1-year deal.
Yep, downgrade. Even though Schoonmaker's out of Michigan, I think it's still like I don't know why you let a Dalton Schultz walk. It's tough, but
you can't pay everybody.
You can't. That's
surprising.
True.
He took a 1-year deal in Houston. He must have not liked it in Dallas.
Yeah, he must have really not liked it in Dallas. But so we'll see. I think their running game has a lot of question marks. Tony Pollard seems to be good in his limited role. He's going to be a keeper for my fantasy team, so I hope he blows up against everybody but us. But I think Zeke coming back, if he doesn't scare me whatsoever. I just think this is a team that is, like you said, really set up to win in September and October, maybe even November, and then towards the end of the year, really just the wheels come out. Come on.
Yeah, they signed Ronald Jones too.
Yep.
big disappointing running back out of Tampa. So they have a Zeke replacement.
Ronald Jones was one of those guys I always thought, oh man, he was so explosive at
He's
USC.
right there.
He's going to come in. He just needs another carry. Just give him one more carry, and he's going to break it. And he never did. He never did anything. But I think I always feel like with the Cowboys, they're always hyped up better than where their actual talent is. And they've been lucky that they feasted on, hey, us, right? Like we've been a dysfunctional franchise, so it was probably a guaranteed 2 wins against us, or we had guys out, so they were playing backups and stuff like that for the last several years. So I think that will probably change here with new ownership coming in and potential changes and things like that. But they've been very lucky, and they haven't done anything with this so-called talent that they have on the team. Like you have that type of talent. Well, where's the NFC Championship games? Where are those?
Yep, I agree. All right, so let's roll to the Giants. Let's see. The Giants signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million contract, and all I have to say is, what?
Good for him.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones? Yeah, get your money, Daniel Jones, but holy crap, that seems like a lot for a quarterback you still don't. I guess they're sure about him, but everybody else, I don't know if you can be sure. Daniel Jones had 3,200 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, and 5 picks, 700 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 1 lost fumble, combined 22 touchdowns. That's not even that great. I don't understand. So I think this team hired the exact right head coach for what they were trying to do in Brian Daboll. Will it work continuously with Daniel Jones? I don't know. I would have not given him the money. I would have waited. I would have franchise tagged him something just to see what else was there. I don't even know what their options were. I would not have paid him a big contract. Saquon Barkley is still technically not signed. I think they want to franchise him, but he has not signed anything yet. He wants a new deal. Rumors are he wants $14 million as a running back. Good luck.
Ooh.
Now, Barkley last year, 1,300 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. And Daniel Jones, of course, had the 707. So this offense revolves around Saquon Barkley, period. And without him, this offense is really not that scary. What does Barkley have left in the tank? I think he still has a lot. Even coming off post-injury last year, he was highly effective, and there is more there to get, especially as they get more comfortable in Brian Daboll's offense. Now, their pass defense was top 10 in the fewest passing touchdowns allowed. That matters. Their pass defense was relatively good, especially when it came to passing touchdowns. What are they weak at? They were bottom 6 in terms of most rush yards allowed. You can run on this team. You can run up and down on this team. And their passing offense, as we know, with Daniel Jones, had the 6th fewest passing yards because they ran the ball so much, and Daniel Jones is just not that great. Now, this team tends to get in its own way, meaning they tend to go stretches where they take Daniel Jones out of the running game. That is a mistake. You have Daniel Jones. You let him run. He's another running back out of the backfield, and then you let him throw off a play action, etc., to keep the defense guessing. They had some key additions. Center, John Michael Schmidt. We wanted this guy. Remember him? They also got Jalen Hyatt, the receiver out of Tennessee, who I think is going to be very good for him. But in a sincere, true, heel, heartbreaking moment, they drafted Deontay Banks, which a lot of folks really wanted Deontay Banks on the Commanders. He is now a Giant. We will see how he plays. But their most important move this offseason, they got Darren Waller from the Raiders. Darren Waller is a crushing, great tight end. I didn't mean to say crushing. I was going to say killer, and I opted not to say that. But he is a fantastic tight end. I think he's going to be great for that offense. He is super athletic. He is going to put Jamin Davis and Cody Barton to work this season. I really like Darren Waller. He is a top 3 tight end when he is healthy. The problem has been health. Can he stay healthy long enough to be a factor throughout the entirety of the season? If that answer is yes, I think the Giants are challenging the Cowboys. If that answer is no, I think the Giants always are what they have been the last, 3 to 5 years, and that's a very decent team at times. The wheels could fall off, or they could really put it all together and surprise some folks. That, my friends, is the New York Giants.
One of the things I'd say about the New York Giants with that top 10 passing defense, a lot of that was built off of how much they pressure. They pressure everybody every play, and it was huge because they knew that their secondary isn't that great. Like their corners, their safeties, they're not that great individual players, so they had to pressure to kind of make up for some of that. And they knew, hey, you're facing young quarterbacks, you're facing Scott Turner twice a year. You know those guys, their protection schemes aren't very good. You can get away with that. So I think they got really lucky with a lot of that pressure that they ran, and I think this year with a harder schedule and some better offenses that they're going to play, I don't think that pressure will work out as well, because to keep that pressure up all the time, it is you live by the sword, you die by the sword type of mindset with if that's kind of the way you're going to play defense. So it'll be interesting to see if they can actually keep that up again this year, that top 10 pass defense with all that pressure that they bring.
Yeah, Dable predicates his offense. I don't think it's built around Saquon Barkley. I think it's built around protecting Daniel Jones from himself, which just makes Saquon Barkley that much more valuable. But Darren Waller you were right. He is a top 10 player when healthy, but he's 31 years old. He's missed like 16 games over the past 2 years, and he just does not scare me anymore. He may make a catch, but he's basically Evan Ingram for them. I don't see a big jump in his game at this point in his career. I just don't. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones, paying him that much money to not screw up, and you're betting on being able to control his love of turning the ball over for 4 more years for that much money. I mean, good luck. I do think that Dable's a great head coach, and I think Wink Martindale as defensive coordinator he's kind of the evil genius back there, and I think the blitzing can't hold up. I just see them treading water this year, right? Like I think they're just going to be a 9 or 10 win team, 8, 9 or 10 win team. It's just where they're going to be stuck at with the talent that they have. I don't think Saquon stays healthy for a full season again. If he even plays, if he doesn't skip the season or whatever he's trying to do to hold out. And if he's not there, I don't know what they're going to do, because then they have to turn Daniel Jones loose because they don't have a viable backup that can. I mean, there's just not somebody else in the league really that can do what Saquon can do, especially as a backup running back. You're just not going to have a backup running back do that. So, their season really hinges on health and Saquon coming back. We'll see how they go. I think they're going to be a middling team treading water. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. Maybe they are. Maybe they leapfrog the Cowboys, who tend to, fluctuate, between 8-8 and 13-4 or whatever. So we'll see what happens with them. They don't super scare me, but I don't think, they're a team that probably can give this team problems, the Commanders problems, because they just always give the Commanders problems no matter how good or bad they are. It's just what it is.
The something that I just looked this up, and this blew my mind. I know Daniel Jones runs the football, but he was the 6th ranked highest rushing quarterback in the NFL last year. Justin Fields was number 1, had like 1,100 yards. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts was 4th, 5th, and he had 165 carries, 760 yards. Daniel Jones was right behind him, 120 carries, 708 yards. That's a lot more than I thought that he had. So yeah, that is a big part of his game and their offense last year, which was like you guys both pointed out, was like keep Daniel Jones from making that big mistake.
Yeah, they are truly the wild card team in the division, in my opinion. So there it is. That's the teams in the division. That's our review of them and what they are bringing to the table this year. Brian, give me your final thoughts on the teams in this division.
I still think the Eagles are the team to beat, right? They're the ones who have the best shot at repeating. Now, we all say that like it's a foregone conclusion. The last time a repeat winner of the NFC East happened, Andy Reid was the head coach of the Eagles. That was what, 03? 02, something like that. Like, I mean, it was a long, long time ago, over 10 plus years, like very, very long time ago. So the odds say it's going to be somebody different, which bodes well for us, right? Because we hope to have a shot at the NFC East title. But I think you have to start with the Eagles, and then you can go to the Cowboys again, which isn't saying too much because we know the Cowboys tend to fall apart at the end of the year, get blown out in that playoff game after they feast on some really bad teams in a weak schedule. schedule. And then we just went over the Giants there, right? Was what they did last year smoke and mirrors? It appears it might be. And we'll see if they can actually, string that together with a follow-up season here. And then what can we do from there, right? Can we improve on 8-1 and some of the ineptitude that we showed, right? We can't lose to a Cleveland Browns team in such bad fashion like we did last year. We can't let the Giants tap dance all over us for 2 games in basically back-to-back weeks like we did at the end of the last year. So can we clean up some of those unforced errors? We'll see. But I think that's how you got to look at it. You got to start with the Eagles, the Cowboys, and then go from there.
Brian, is there a team that makes you the most nervous when it comes to Sam Howell playing that you think could damage him the most?
No. You guys know I like Sam Howell. I've watched a lot of him in college. I think he has skill sets that will translate to here. The biggest thing that was going to hold him back was Scott Turner. And if Scott Turner was the offensive coordinator, Sam Howell would probably be benched inside of 10 plays this coming season because Scott Turner is that bad and he just doesn't know what to do with any quarterback. So I think getting Eric Bieniemy and his creativity and his professionalism of understanding basic offensive concepts. We just talked about the Giants and their pressure scheme. Well, we're not going to leave Kayvon Thibodeau unblocked on the 5-yard line so he can sack Taylor Heineke and pick up the ball for like a touchdown or to be on the 1-yard line. He's going to have a common sense approach. They're going to have a plan for every opponent that they play. Doesn't mean they'll win all the time, but they'll have a plan, which is more than what we had last year on the offensive side of the football. So, no, there's not really anybody who's like, oh, Sam Howell can't play that guy or they can't play that team. I think we have a shot now. Does it mean we'll win? No, but it's a better shot than what we had last year with Scott Turner running things.
I like it. Eric, final thoughts on the division?
Yeah, it's going to be a step back. This division was way too good last year, top to bottom, even including the Commanders at 8-1. Nobody below 500. Technically, we had a tie. I guess we were technically below 500, but we were, that level. You just don't see that every year. And I do think that the Eagles win the division, but I think they regress. I think the only dynasty you're going to see in, Philadelphia is an 84 Dodge dynasty with, I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see them repeating the success that they had last year. And there will be other teams in the NFC, maybe a surprise team like the Commanders could step up, and overtake them. Maybe they get back to the Super Bowl. Maybe they win the Super Bowl. Who knows at this point? I see a regression. I just, Brian said it, the history of this division is there's a different winner every year. Doesn't mean it's going to keep happening, but shouldn't surprise anybody if it does happen. The Cowboys, again, you don't know what they're going to do. They're going to be, a 500 team or they're going to be a, 13-win team, really nothing in between. I think they're closer to a 500 team this year because I see this whole division regressing, and I see the Giants again treading water, and the Commanders probably treading water as well. As much as I'd like them to be a good team this year, I'm not sold. So I think you're going to see a division that's a lot closer, like it was last year, or a lot closer than it was last year, but not as good overall as it was last year. So I think you're going to range between 7 and 12 wins. That's my prediction. That's where all the teams finish next year. I don't know who finishes where, but that's what I'm rolling with.
Eric, you made a good point earlier about offensive coordinator and the jump from Nick Sirianni to Shane Steichen and how things jumped when he took over as play caller. LE, your Detroit Lions, when Ben Johnson took over from the personal trainer head coach, when he took over for him.
Got to get that dig in on Dan Campbell. You hate that man way too much.
I'm required to by law to get that dig in.
You hate him so much. It's just like weird. It's like hating it's like hating vanilla ice cream, right?
I saw a for help wanted sign at the Gold's Gym down the street here, so maybe Dan Campbell could go there. But anyways, when he turned that play calling over to Ben Johnson, we saw that Detroit Lions offense, take off. And I think hey, for us, I think that's an important thing to look at here this year, from going from Scott Turner to Eric Bieniemy. Doesn't guarantee that we win a bunch of games, but I think we're on a much better footing with him.
Yeah, I like it. I think what you guys are saying is that this division is still up for grabs. There's no team that is guaranteed to win the division before they start playing football games. And If we had Dan Campbell, we'd be a lock to win the division, according to Brian. But you know what? We don't. We have Ron Rivera. We got Eric Bieniemy. So it's going to make for a very exciting season. You know, some teams are going to lose games they're supposed to win, right? And we'll still a couple of games. It's just a matter from who and what we do with the rest of it to put it all together. But all in all, this is a good division. It is. Will we have the same number of wins in the division as a collective? Probably not, because a lot of teams that the division plays got a lot better this offseason, too. So we shall see. But it's going to be a fun one. We all look forward to it. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. Look us up on audio. Subscribe there to Commanders Declassified Podcast, your home for all things Washington Commanders. Subscribe, like, comment. We are out. Help us defeat the YouTube algorithms, right, fellas?
That's right.
That's right.
Peace. Yeah. Peace, guys.